Hey everyone, Sophia here. And oh my goodness, I have a story for you. You will not believe what happened to me today. It all started with a little bit of harmless online browsing, you know, the kind where you're just scrolling and scrolling, not really looking for anything in particular. And then, bam, there it was, this thing. I don't even know what to call it, but it was shiny and it had good reviews and suddenly, I needed it. The purchase button practically glowed, and before I knew what hit me, I'd clicked it. Honestly, it felt like magic, or maybe impulse control gone rogue. I'm still buzzing with this mix of excitement and slight panic, because, well, I absolutely do not need this thing. But the thrill of the unexpected purchase, the anticipation of it arriving, it's kind of exhilarating. I can't wait to show you what it is and tell you all about this little adventure. So, let's begin our exciting journey of English improvement together. Remember, I release new videos daily focusing on English speaking and listening skills to help you improve and enjoy your learning journey. Okay, so, grab a cuppa, settle in, because this story is a classic. My first road trip. It's practically a rite of passage, right? And mine? Oh, honey, it was a doozy. It all started the summer I turned 16. Sweet 16 and finally free-ish. I mean, free enough to convince my parents to let me drive their ancient, wood-paneled station wagon, affectionately nicknamed, the Beast, across 2 states to visit my cousin, Sarah, at the beach. Can you even imagine? The freedom, the open road, the questionable upholstery. It was everything 16-year-old me dreamed of. My best friend, Chloe, was coming, of course. We'd been planning this pilgrimage for months. Map unfolded on my bedroom floor, surrounded by candy wrappers and magazines, highlighting routes, circling must-see roadside attractions, and meticulously crafting mixtapes. Yes, mixtapes. This was before Spotify, my friend. We're talking actual cassettes, painstakingly recorded from the radio, with the occasional DJ's voice interrupting our carefully curated masterpieces. The day finally arrived, and it was chaotic. Packing the Beast was like playing Tetris with oversized suitcases, inflatable pool toys, and enough snacks to feed a small army. My dad kept muttering about suspension and tire pressure, while my mom fussed over emergency kits and sunscreen. You know the drill. Finally, we were off. The first few hours were pure bliss. Windows down, wind whipping through our hair, well, attempting to whip through my helmet hair. Let's be real. Singing along to Bon Jovi at the top of our lungs. The world stretched out before us, a ribbon of asphalt promising adventure. We felt invincible, untouchable, like Thelma and Louise, but with less, dramatic consequences. We stopped at a roadside diner for lunch. One of those classic places with red vinyl booths, checkered floors, and a waitress who called everyone, hun. The air hung thick with the smell of frying bacon and coffee, and the jukebox crooned forgotten country tunes. We ordered burgers and fries, giggling over silly inside jokes and debating the merits of ketchup versus mustard. It was perfect, a snapshot of pure, unadulterated teenage joy. Then, things started to go, shall we say, slightly sideways. First, it was the map. Remember, pre-GPS days. We were relying on a paper map, folded and refolded so many times it looked like origami. Somewhere between the giant ball of twine and the world's largest rocking chair, yes, those are real places, we took a wrong turn. A really wrong turn. We ended up on a dusty back road, surrounded by cornfields that seemed to stretch on forever. No signs, no houses, just corn, miles and miles of corn. Panic started to set in. The sun was beginning to dip below the horizon, casting long, eerie shadows across the fields. The Beast, bless its clunky heart, started making concerning groaning noises. And then, the ultimate horror. The mixtape player ate our precious Bon Jovi tape. Can you even imagine the tragedy? It was a dark moment, my friend. A very dark moment. Just when we were about to succumb to despair, we spotted a flicker of light in the distance. A farmhouse. An actual, honest-to-goodness farmhouse, with a porch swing and a dog barking lazily in the yard. We pulled up, hesitant but hopeful. An elderly woman, her face etched with wrinkles that told 1,000 stories, answered our knock. She welcomed us in with a warm smile and the smell of freshly baked apple pie. She fed us, let us use her phone, a rotary phone, mind you, and even offered us a spare room for the night. She told us stories about her life on the farm, about raising her children, about the changing seasons. It was like stepping back in time, a reminder of a simpler, slower pace of life. You know what I mean? It was magical. The next morning, she pointed us in the right direction, armed with hand-drawn directions and a Tupperware container full of still warm apple pie. We were back on track. A little delayed, a little disoriented, but with a newfound appreciation for kindness and the unexpected detours life throws your way. The rest of the trip was, well, it was an adventure. We finally made it to the beach, albeit a day later than planned. We swam in the ocean, built sandcastles, laughed until our stomachs hurt. We even managed to replace the lost Bon Jovi tape with a slightly warped copy from a local gas station. Looking back, it wasn't the perfect road trip we'd envisioned. It was messy. It was unpredictable. It was full of wrong turns and unexpected encounters. But it was ours. It was the first taste of real freedom. The first time we truly felt like we were in charge of our own destiny. Even if that destiny involved getting lost in a cornfield. It was a story we told and retold for years, each time adding a little more embellishment, a little more dramatic flair. And you know what? It's those imperfections, those unexpected moments, that make the story worth telling. They're the things that remind us that life isn't about sticking to the plan. It's about embracing the detours, the unexpected kindness, the shared laughter, and the slightly warped Bon Jovi tapes. It's about the journey, not just the destination. And that, my friend, is the real beauty of a first road trip. So, what about yours? Any epic tales to share? I'm all ears. Okay, so, you are never going to believe what happened to me the other day. I decided, it was high time I tackled the beast. The beast being my apartment. Not that it's usually a disaster zone, but, let's just say things had accumulated. Like a slow, creeping tide of stuff. You know how it is, right? One day your coffee table is clear, the next it's a landscape of half-read books, abandoned mugs, and, I kid you not, a stray sock. Where did that even come from? Anyway, I woke up that Saturday with a strange burst of energy. Sunlight was streaming through the window. The birds were chirping. Or maybe that was the construction next door, but let's go with birds. And I felt this urge. An urge to purge. First things first, coffee. Strong coffee. Like, punch you in the face and tell you to get moving coffee. While it was brewing, I surveyed the scene. The kitchen sink, bless its heart, looked like a science experiment gone wrong. Dishes piled high, a questionable something clinging to the faucet. It was, well, it needed love. Lots of love, and probably some bleach. So, I put on my most enthusiastic cleaning playlist, the one with all the cheesy 80s power ballads. Cranked it up, and dove in. Gloves on, sponge in hand, I started tackling the sink. And honestly, it was kind of therapeutic. The warm, soapy water, the satisfying scrape of the sponge against the grime. I felt like a warrior conquering a particularly stubborn foe. And then, disaster struck. I reached for a particularly crusty plate, and whoosh. The entire precarious tower of dishes wobbled, swayed, and then, cascaded down. Crash, bang, clatter. It sounded like a small earthquake had hit my kitchen. I stared at the wreckage, a mixture of horror and, I'll admit it, a little bit of hysterical laughter bubbling up inside me. There were shards of ceramic everywhere, tomato sauce splattered across the cabinets, and a lone, surviving fork standing upright amidst the chaos. It was a truly magnificent mess. Right, deep breaths. I cleaned up the carnage, carefully, this time, and decided to move on to the living room. The living room, oh, the living room. It was like a museum dedicated to my procrastination. Clothes draped over chairs, piles of magazines threatening to topple over, and, of course, the infamous sock-covered coffee table. I started small, picking up stray items and putting them where they belonged, or, where they should belong. Don't judge my filing system, it's evolving. I unearthed treasures I'd completely forgotten about. A concert ticket from last summer. A postcard from a friend. a half-finished knitting project that I swore I'd get back to someday. Each item told a little story, a little snippet of my life. It was kind of sweet, actually. Then I tackled the bookshelves. Dust bunnies the size of small rodents scurried away as I wiped down the shelves. I rearranged the books, alphabetizing some, grouping others by color, creating little literary landscapes. It was surprisingly absorbing, and I lost myself in the task, humming along to Bon Jovi and occasionally breaking out into some truly embarrassing dance moves. No witnesses, though, so we're good. By the time I reached the bedroom, I was starting to flag a little. But the end was in sight. I stripped the bed, threw the sheets in the wash, and then I opened my closet. Oh, the closet. It was like a black hole, a vortex of forgotten garments. I pulled out clothes I hadn't worn in years, clothes that didn't even fit anymore, clothes that I vaguely remembered buying but had absolutely no recollection of why. It was time for a ruthless purge. I created 3 piles. Keep, donate, and the maybe pile. The maybe pile is a dangerous thing, I know. It's the procrastination station, the place where clothes go to live in limbo, hoping for a second chance. But I was firm. Mostly. Okay. Maybe a few things snuck into the maybe pile. But still, progress. As the afternoon wore on, the apartment slowly transformed. From chaos to order, from dusty and cluttered to clean and, well, almost sparkling. The sun was starting to set, casting long shadows across the room, and I stood in the middle of my newly cleaned living room, breathing in the scent of lemon polish and, well, maybe a faint lingering aroma of that tomato sauce incident. But it smelled good. It smelled like accomplishment. I collapsed onto the sofa, exhausted but strangely exhilarated. The apartment felt lighter. Not just physically, but emotionally too. It was like I'd cleared out not just the clutter, but also some mental cobwebs. You know what I mean? It's amazing how much our physical space can affect our mental state. I ordered takeout, poured myself a glass of wine, and just sat. Enjoyed the quiet, the cleanliness, the sense of peace. It was a perfect ending to a perfectly imperfect day. And guess what? The next morning, I found the other sock tucked away in a potted plant. Don't even ask. So, yeah, that was my cleaning day. A little chaotic, a little messy, a little bit me. But hey, isn't that what life's all about? Embracing the mess, finding the joy in the mundane, and occasionally, just occasionally, conquering the beast that is your apartment. Now, tell me, what about your cleaning adventures? I bet you have some stories. Winking face. Hey everyone. It's so inspiring to see you all actively practicing your English speaking skills. Learning a new language is totally within your reach, and honestly, it can be so much fun. Learn for the love of it, not the fear of it. Think about it. When you're driven by passion, the journey becomes an adventure, not a chore. Every little step forward, every new word you learn, becomes a victory to celebrate, boosting your confidence and making the whole process so much more enjoyable. And you know what? Here's a simple idea to weave speaking practice into your daily life. Try describing a festival celebration. Imagine you're chatting with a friend and telling them about Diwali, Christmas, or maybe even a local harvest festival. Talk about the food, the decorations, the music, everything. It's an easy way to practice vocabulary related to traditions, customs, and emotions, and you can do it while cooking dinner, walking your dog, or even just relaxing on the sofa. Do you also find yourself feeling anxious on phone calls? You're definitely not alone. Picking up the phone to speak in English can feel like stepping onto a stage, and it's totally understandable to feel a bit nervous, especially when you're not sure what the other person will say or how fast they'll speak. That little flutter in your stomach? It just means you care, and that's a good thing. Remember, every conversation is a chance to learn and grow. You will not believe what happened next. The other day, I was ordering takeout, and I completely blanked on the word for spicy. It was a bit awkward, but we laughed it off, and I ended up describing the flavor instead. It made me think, do you prefer formal or informal English conversations? Sometimes, the relaxed, informal chats are where the real magic happens, right? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Settling into an imaginary armchair, taking a sip of imaginary tea. So, you know how sometimes the simplest tasks can turn into an entire saga? Well, let me tell you about the day I cleaned my water bottle. Now, this wasn't just any water bottle cleaning. Oh no, this was an epic battle against, well, I wasn't quite sure what at the time. But it was a foe worthy of a ballad, let me tell you. This water bottle, see, it was my trusty companion. A sturdy, stainless steel fellow, a little dented from being dropped on various hiking trails and bounced around in my bag during countless commutes. It had witnessed whispered secrets, fueled late-night study sessions, and quenched my thirst on scorching summer days. We'd been through a lot together, that water bottle and I. But lately, something was off. The water tasted funny. Not like bad funny, not like I need to call poison control funny. Just stale, a little musty, like a forgotten library book. And when I took a sniff, oh, honey, let's just say it wasn't the refreshing scent of mountain springs. So, I decided it was time for a deep clean. I mean, a deep clean. A surgical strike against whatever microscopic civilization had taken up residence in the depths of my bottle. I started with the basics, you know? Hot water, dish soap, a good scrubbing with a bottle brush. Swished it around, rinsed it thoroughly, and sniffed. Still there, that faint, lingering funk. Now, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, I'll admit. And this lingering odor was like a tiny, persistent gnat buzzing around my head. I couldn't let it go. It was a challenge, a quest, my personal Everest of water bottle hygiene. So, I escalated. Baking soda, the miracle worker of the kitchen. I poured in a generous amount, added hot water, let it fizz and pop like a science experiment gone right, or so I thought. Sealed it up, shook it vigorously, left it overnight. The next morning, I approached the bottle with a sense of anticipation, like an archaeologist about to unearth a priceless artifact. I rinsed it out, took a deep breath, and, still there. Fainter, yes, but still detectable. The phantom funk persisted. You wouldn't believe it. My competitive spirit, usually reserved for board games and the occasional karaoke night, was fully ignited. This water bottle wasn't going to win. Oh no, it was time to bring out the big guns. Vinegar. The pungent, powerful, slightly terrifying vinegar. I filled the bottle, held my breath, because, seriously, the smell of straight vinegar is intense, and let it soak. This time, I was sure. This was the nuclear option. Nothing could survive this. While the vinegar worked its magic, I started Googling. Stubborn water bottle smell. How to clean a really, really dirty water bottle. Help. My water bottle is haunted by a musty ghost. You know, the usual. And that's when I stumbled upon it. The secret weapon. The game changer. Rice. Uncooked rice. Apparently, the abrasive texture of the rice grains, combined with the shaking action, could dislodge any lingering grime or whatever it was, clinging to the inside of the bottle. Skeptical, but desperate, I rinsed out the vinegar, added a handful of rice, and some more hot water. Then, I sealed the bottle and shook. I shook it like a maraca, like a Polaroid picture, like my life depended on it. I shook it until my arms ached and I could hear the rhythmic clatter of the rice grains against the steel. Finally, I rinsed it out, one last time. Held my breath, and, victory, the funk was gone, vanished, eradicated. The bottle smelled clean. Like nothing. Which, in this case, was everything. You know, it's funny, isn't it? How much time and effort I invested in cleaning a water bottle. But it was more than just a cleaning project. It was a personal challenge, a miniature quest for freshness, a testament to my stubborn refusal to be defeated by a lingering smell. And in the end, the feeling of accomplishment, the satisfaction of conquering that tiny, musty foe, well, it was oddly satisfying, like I'd climbed a mountain, even if that mountain was just the inside of my water bottle. It made me think about all the little things we take for granted. A clean glass of water. A fresh-smelling bottle. The simple pleasures that often go unnoticed until they're gone. And it reminded me that sometimes, the most epic adventures can be found in the most unexpected places. Even in the bottom of a water bottle. So, the next time you take a sip from your trusty water bottle, take a moment to appreciate it. And if you ever encounter that dreaded, lingering funk, well, you know what to do. Grab some rice, my friend. And get ready to shake. Because sometimes, the simplest solutions are the most effective. And sometimes, the smallest victories are the sweetest. Now, tell me, have you ever had a surprisingly epic cleaning adventure? I'd love to hear it. Okay, so, grab your tea. Snuggle in, because this story is a good one. It's about my first time truly exploring a new city, all on my own. Not just visiting, not just ticking off tourist spots, but really feeling a city breathe. And that city was Lisbon. Lisbon, oh, Lisbon. I'd dreamt of its hilly streets, its melancholy fado music, drifting from hidden taverns, the scent of roasted sardines hanging in the air. You know, all that romantic stuff. And let me tell you, it did not disappoint. I arrived in early spring, the kind of spring where the air is still crisp but the sun has this delicious warmth to it. I remember stepping off the plane, this wave of excitement washing over me. It wasn't just the thrill of a new place, but this sense of freedom, of possibility. I had booked a tiny Airbnb tucked away in Alfama, the oldest district, a maze of cobblestone streets and colorful buildings clinging to the hillside. Finding it, well, that was an adventure in itself. My phone, naturally, decided this was the perfect moment to have a near-death experience battery-wise. So there I was, dragging my suitcase, which, by the way, was entirely too big for navigating those narrow lanes, map in hand, utterly and gloriously lost. But lost in the best way possible. Because getting lost, you see, is when the magic really happens. I stumbled upon tiny grocery stores overflowing with olives and cheeses, smelled freshly baked bread wafting from a bakery tucked beneath a crumbling archway, heard snippets of conversations in rapid fire. Portuguese that I couldn't understand but somehow still felt the warmth of. Eventually, a kind old woman with eyes as bright as the azulejos on the buildings pointed me in the right direction, chattering away in Portuguese, of course. I understood maybe 2 words, but her gestures and the twinkle in her eye conveyed everything. It's amazing how much you can communicate without sharing a language, isn't it? My Airbnb was a gem. A little window box overflowing with geraniums, a view of the terracotta rooftops stretching down to the Tagus River, glistening in the afternoon sun. I dropped my bags, took a deep breath, and just felt it. That feeling of being exactly where I was meant to be. Now, I had a loose itinerary, but I decided to throw it out the window. Lisbon isn't a city you conquer with a checklist. It's a city you savor. So, I did what any self-respecting explorer would do. I wandered. I wandered down to the riverfront, watched the fishing boats bobbing gently on the water, the salty air whipping through my hair. I bought a pastel de nata from a little kiosk and, oh my goodness, that first bite, it was like a little slice of heaven. Warm, custard flaky pastry, dusted with cinnamon. I'm pretty sure I moaned out loud. No shame. Later, I found myself climbing the steep, winding streets of Alfama, drawn by the sound of music. It was coming from a tiny, dimly lit tavern, tucked away down a narrow alley. Inside, a lone guitarist was playing fado, his voice raw with emotion, the melody both melancholic and strangely uplifting. It felt like a secret, a glimpse into the soul of the city. I sat at a small table, sipped on a glass of vinho verde, and just let the music wash over me. The next day, I decided to take a ride on the iconic tram 28. Now, I'd heard tales of its crowdedness, of tourists packed in like sardines, ironic, considering Lisbon's love for them. But I got lucky. I hopped on early in the morning, grabbed a seat by the window, and off we rattled, through narrow streets barely wider than the tram itself, past colorful buildings adorned with intricate tiles, up and down those infamous Lisbon hills. It was like a roller coaster, a charming, slightly rickety roller coaster through history. One afternoon, I decided to explore the Belém district. I took a ferry across the Tagus, the wind in my face, the city skyline receding behind me. Belém is where the grand explorers set sail from centuries ago, and you can feel that history in the air. I visited the Geronimo's Monastery, a breathtaking masterpiece of Manueline architecture, all ornate carvings and soaring arches. And then, of course, I had another pastel de nata. Because, why not? But you know what was even more magical than the grand monuments? It was the little moments. The street musician playing a haunting melody on his violin, the children chasing pigeons in a sun-drenched square, the scent of grilled fish wafting from a tiny restaurant, the laughter spilling out from a local bar. Those are the moments that truly stayed with me. I made mistakes, of course. I ordered something from a menu without fully understanding what it was. Turns out, tripe is not my thing. I got completely turned around in the Alfama labyrinth more times than I can count. I even accidentally stepped on a dog's tail, poor thing. I was mortified, but each little mishap became a story, a memory. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? Not just seeing the sights, but experiencing the city, the good, the bad, the funny, the unexpected. It's about allowing yourself to get lost, both literally and figuratively. It's about opening yourself up to new experiences, new tastes, new sounds, new perspectives. By the time I left Lisbon, I felt changed. It wasn't just that I had seen a beautiful city. It was that the city had seen me. It had whispered its secrets to me, shared its stories, invited me to be a part of its vibrant tapestry, even just for a little while. And that, my friend, is the magic of exploring a new city, truly exploring it, heart and soul open wide. You come back not just with photos and souvenirs, but with a piece of that city woven into the fabric of who you are. And that, well, that's a feeling worth chasing. So, when are you booking your next adventure? Seriously, you should. You won't regret it. Hey everyone, learning a new language can feel like climbing a mountain, right? But guess what? It's totally doable, and even enjoyable. I love the saying, consistency beats talent when talent doesn't practice. Think about it. Even the most naturally gifted language learner won't get far without regular effort. But you, by showing up and practicing, are already building something amazing. You're proving that dedication is the real key, and that's something to be incredibly proud of. You know what's a fun way to boost your speaking confidence? Reciting a poem dramatically. Seriously, it works wonders. Picture this. You're making dinner, and while the pasta boils, you launch into a theatrical rendition of your favorite poem. It helps with pronunciation, intonation, and it just feels good to let loose. Plus, nobody's around to judge, so you can really go for it. Do you also find yourself understanding what others say in English, but hesitate when it's your turn to speak? Finding it hard to speak clearly under pressure is something so many of us experience. It's like your brain freezes, and the words just won't come out right. It's completely normal, and you're definitely not alone in this. It happens because we're worried about making mistakes, and that's okay. It just means you care about getting it right. And you know what? This reminds me of something funny that happened the other day. I was at a restaurant, and I completely blanked when the waiter asked me what I wanted to drink. It happens to the best of us. Which brings me to my question for you all. What's your favorite English food and how do you order it? I'm genuinely curious, and maybe we can all learn some new phrases from each other. Share your experiences in the comments below. I can't wait to hear from you. So, you know how sometimes you just crave that sense of community, that feeling of belonging? Well, last weekend, I had the most heartwarming experience at our neighborhood's annual potluck. I'm still buzzing from it, actually. Let me tell you all about it. Grab your tea. This might take a while. It all started a few weeks ago when I saw the flyer tacked to the community bulletin board. Big, bold letters. Annual potluck extravaganza. I chuckled. Extravaganza, really? But something about it, it called to me. I've lived here for almost a year now, and while I've exchanged smiles and waves with neighbors, I hadn't really connected with anyone. You know, deep down, I was kind of longing for that front porch swing, sharing a lemonade kind of friendship. So, I decided to take the plunge. The theme was summer bounty, which immediately sent my mind racing. Should I bake something savory? Something sweet? Oh, the pressure. I'm a decent cook, nothing spectacular, but I didn't want to show up with a sad-looking dish. After days of internal debate, blueberry pie? Cornbread? A 7-layer dip of epic proportions? I settled on a watermelon and feta salad with a mint lime dressing. A little adventurous, a little refreshing, a little me, I hoped. The day of the potluck arrived, and I have to admit, I was a bundle of nerves. What if nobody liked my salad? What if I accidentally spilled it on someone wearing white? What if, okay, you get the picture. I was overthinking it, big time. I carefully packed my salad in a large glass bowl. One even bought a new one for the occasion. And headed to the park. Music was already drifting through the air as I approached. A cheerful mix of folksy tunes and children's laughter. It was a picture-perfect summer afternoon. The sun was dappling through the trees. The air smelled of freshly cut grass, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves. And the food, oh my goodness, the food. Tables laden with dishes of every color and description stretched out under the shade of a giant oak tree. There were casseroles bubbling with cheesy goodness, platters piled high with grilled chicken and ribs, colorful salads overflowing with summer vegetables, and desserts that looked like they belonged in a bakery window. Honestly, it was a feast for the senses. The smell of barbecue smoke mingled with the sweetness of baked goods, creating this amazing aroma that just hung in the air. My initial nervousness started to melt away as I took it all in. People were chatting, laughing, kids were chasing each other with sticky fingers and ice cream smiles. It was the epitome of community. I found a spot for my salad and took a deep breath. Time to socialize. Now, I'm not exactly a social butterfly, you know? So, my first approach was a little clumsy. I kind of hovered awkwardly near a group discussing the merits of different potato salad recipes, trying to find an opening to jump in. It took a few tries, and maybe a slightly forced laugh at a joke I didn't quite understand, but eventually, I found myself chatting with a lovely woman named Martha who had brought the most incredible zucchini bread I've ever tasted. From there, the afternoon just flowed. I met a retired teacher with a passion for gardening, a young couple who had just moved in across the street, and a group of teenagers who were surprisingly insightful about the best places to get pizza in town. We talked about everything and nothing, the weather, local news, our favorite books, the joys and tribulations of pet ownership. It was so easy, so natural. And the food, let me tell you, I sampled everything. From spicy jerk chicken to creamy mac and cheese, to a strawberry rhubarb pie that was so good it made me want to weep. My watermelon and feta salad? It was a hit. People kept coming back for seconds, and I even got a few compliments on my mint lime dressing. Talk about a confidence boost. But the best part wasn't even the food. It was the connections, the conversations, the shared laughter. It was that feeling of being part of something bigger than myself, of belonging to this little pocket of community. There was one moment, I'll never forget it. I was chatting with a woman named Sarah, and we discovered we both had a love for vintage vinyl records. We ended up spending a good half-hour geeking out over our favorite albums, swapping stories about record store finds, and making plans to visit a local flea market together next weekend. It was like finding a kindred spirit, you know? Guess what happened next? Just as we were getting deep into a discussion about the merits of first pressing versus reissues, a frisbee came sailing through the air and landed squarely in my bowl of watermelon salad. Splatter! Feta and watermelon chunks went flying everywhere. I was mortified, but Sarah, she just burst out laughing. And then I started laughing too. It was just so absurd. And in that moment, any lingering awkwardness completely disappeared. We cleaned up the mess together, and honestly, it just made the whole experience even more memorable. It was a reminder that life is messy. Things don't always go according to plan, and sometimes, the unexpected moments are the ones that bring us closer together. As the sun began to set, casting a warm golden glow over the park, I felt this overwhelming sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the delicious food, for the new connections I had made, and for the simple joy of being part of a community. It was more than just a potluck. It was a celebration of togetherness, of shared experiences, and of the simple pleasures of good food and good company. Walking home that evening, I felt lighter, happier, more connected. It was like a little piece of my heart had been filled. It was a reminder that sometimes, the best things in life are the simplest ones, a shared meal, a friendly conversation, a sense of belonging. And who knows, maybe this potluck extravaganza was just the beginning of some beautiful new friendships. Wouldn't that be something? Okay, so grab a cuppa, settle in, because I have a story to tell you. It's about my first ever film festival experience. And, oh boy, it was, well, let's just say it was a whirlwind. A beautiful, chaotic, inspiring, slightly smelly whirlwind. You see, I'd always dreamt of going to a film festival. I mean, who hasn't, right? The glamour, the indie films, the chance to maybe, just maybe, spot a famous director lurking in the popcorn line. So, when I finally snagged tickets to the Silver Screen City Film Fest, I was ecstatic. I'm talking doing a little happy dance in my kitchen ecstatic. The festival was held in this charming, slightly rundown seaside town. Think cobblestone streets, salty air, and more seagulls than you could shake a stick at. I arrived a day early, wanting to soak in the atmosphere. You know, get my bearings, find the best coffee shop, crucial for any film buff fueled by caffeine and dreams, and just generally feel the buzz. The air, oh, the air. It was thick with that particular seaside scent, a mix of salt, fish and chips, and something vaguely floral, probably from the window boxes overflowing with geraniums. I remember wandering down to the harbor, watching the fishing boats bobbing gently, the sun setting in this glorious explosion of orange and pink. It felt peaceful, like the calm before the storm, which, in hindsight, it totally was. The festival itself was a sensory overload from the get-go. Bright banners plastered every lamppost, posters showcasing quirky film titles peeked out from shop windows, and throngs of people, a mix of locals and cinephiles like myself, milled around, buzzing with anticipation. The energy was palpable. It felt like the whole town was vibrating with excitement. My first film was a documentary about a nomadic tribe in Mongolia. Now, I love documentaries, I really do. But this one, let's just say it was a tad slow. Beautifully shot, don't get me wrong, but after an hour of watching yaks graze, I started to feel my eyelids getting heavy. You know that feeling? Like your head is filled with cotton wool and you're fighting a losing battle against gravity? Yeah, that. The next screening was a completely different beast. A gritty, fast-paced thriller set in the neon-lit underbelly of Tokyo. It was gripping, intense, and had me on the edge of my seat, literally. I think I spilled half my popcorn during the chase scene. The cinema was packed, and you could feel the collective intake of breath every time something dramatic happened. It was electric. The days that followed were a blur of films, Q&A sessions, and late-night discussions in dimly lit bars. I saw everything from heartwarming coming-of-age stories to experimental art house films that left me scratching my head, in a good way, mostly. There was one film, though, that really stuck with me. It was a small, independent film about a woman who runs a bookstore in a dying town. Nothing much happened, plot-wise, but the way the director captured the quiet moments, the unspoken emotions, the subtle shifts in the light, it was breathtaking. I remember walking out of the cinema feeling completely moved, like I'd lived a whole lifetime in those 2 hours. And the people, oh, the people I met. There was this retired film critic with the most incredible stories, a group of film students brimming with passion and ideas, and this charmingly eccentric woman who claimed to have met Fellini once. I totally believed her. We'd bump into each other at screenings, grab coffee together, dissect the films, argue about symbolism, and generally geek out about cinema. It was like finding my tribe. Of course, it wasn't all sunshine and roses. There were moments of frustration. Like the time I missed a screening because I got completely lost in the maze of cobblestone streets. My sense of direction is, shall we say, less than stellar. Or the time I accidentally sat on someone's bag of gourmet popcorn, oops. And let's not even talk about the questionable hygiene of the portable toilets. But even these little mishaps added to the overall experience. They made it real, you know? One evening, I stumbled upon a hidden courtyard tucked away behind a cafe. There was a small stage set up, and a local band was playing this hauntingly beautiful folk music. Fairy lights twinkled in the trees. The air was warm and fragrant with the scent of jasmine, and people were swaying gently to the music, lost in their own little worlds. It was magical, like something out of a dream. I remember sitting there, sipping my lukewarm beer, feeling utterly content. Surrounded by strangers who suddenly felt like friends, connected by this shared love of film, in this beautiful, slightly chaotic town. It was in that moment, I think, that I truly understood the magic of film festivals. It's not just about the films themselves. It's about the community, the shared experience, the sense of discovery. It's about escaping the everyday and immersing yourself in a world of stories, emotions, and human connections. The last day of the festival arrived far too quickly. I remember standing on the train platform, watching the town recede into the distance, feeling a pang of sadness. But also a sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the films I'd seen, the people I'd met, the experiences I'd had. It was exhausting, exhilarating, and everything in between. And you know what? I haven't spotted a famous director yet. But I did discover some incredible films, made some wonderful friends, and learned a thing or two about myself along the way. So, yeah, I'd say my first film festival experience was a resounding success. And I can't wait for the next one. Now, who wants to hear about the time I accidentally crashed a celebrity after party? Just kidding, unless? Just kidding. Or am I? Anyway, another cup of tea? Well, thank you all so much for hanging out with me and watching this video until the very end. I truly appreciate you staying connected and learning along with me. I hope you found it helpful. You know, before we go, I was just thinking about what I need to get done tomorrow, and it made me wonder, what's your to-do list for tomorrow looking like? It's always so lovely to hear what everyone is thinking about. Plus it's a great way to practice writing in English and sharing a little bit about your world. Don't forget to follow, like, subscribe, and share so we can keep this conversation going with more English speaking and listening practice every day. See you tomorrow, and in the meantime, take good care and keep practicing.